many of you are familiar with unschooling?
Barely hear it.
Okay. How many with homeschooling?
All the above.
Okay. How many just walked in off the street? Spend the afternoon here. Okay. Sorry, if I knew this was videoed, I would have dressed better, but I just traveled from Calgary, so I thought, oh well, I'll throw on my jeans. But thank you for organizing this. So because unschooling is learner-centered, I have a bit of a structure here today, but I want to go where you want to go, okay? So feel free to ask questions at any time, interrupt me. I'd be happy to go where you want to go. Sound good? Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. So I'll start. So I'm junior now. I have been teaching parent education for about 22 years. And parent education is very learner-centered. So can you hear me okay back there? Okay. Unlike child education, which is very teacher-centered. So when I got into parent ed, I realized, wait, why don't we do this with kids? And I ran into a lot of pushback from people saying, well, kids don't have the experience to know what they need to know. And I really examined those assumptions, and I talked about them in my book. So kids can absolutely get all they need in education through their interests and their curiosity. Okay, so that's me. These are my kids. So they range in age from, oh my gosh, what are they now? 16 is my baby. He hates being called that, but he'll always be my baby. And my oldest is 27. So I'm actually on my way to visit him, which is great. I've written parenting books. I am a non-punitive parenting person. So I totally believe in you can raise kids without any type of punishment. No timeouts, no taking away computers, no nothing. Just problem solving. So, and yeah. And I teach at the University of Calgary Continuing Education, a parenting course, and I also help develop the Alberta Health Services. I worked for them for 13 years, and I helped develop their Terrific Toddlers program. So, I decided when my third child finished university, I had to get all this in a book. And it's been taking me 10 years, and I thought, okay, well, I'll publish when my first gets to university, and then when my first graduate, and then I had 3 graduates, and I thought, okay, I gotta get this book out. And at that time, I looked around at all our friends. So, as you know, in homeschooling, you hang around with other homeschoolers, right? Yeah? Yeah. And you do, and you watch your kids grow up, and your friends are there. Your friends are them, and your kids are friends with their kids. Like, I'm sure these are all homeschoolers, right? And they grew up together. So about the time my kids got around 17, 18, that's the time that the brain really starts maturing in its executive function abilities. So this is from the Brain Core Story course put out by Alberta Family Wellness, the Parents Foundation. And I've just ended it at 12, but I do have a slide in here I'll show you where it goes all the way to 80. But around 17, 18, we kind of noticed that the kids are gearing up for what are they going to do for work? What are they going to do for their lives? And a lot of them really buckled down and took formal grade 12 courses, that kind of thing. And they got accepted to universities and graduated, or colleges or technical schools. Wherever they wanted to go, they got in, even though they were unschooled. Okay? So then I thought, well, I started with a team of 12, and I thought I explored how they got there and what they did. And then it grew to 20 and then 30 kids. So if I know 30 kids in my circle of friends that can unschool and go all the way to universities, anybody can, really. It's just that nobody's written about it or has published studies about it. Okay? So that's what we did. Sorry. I like the pace of it. So that's a team of 30. book, I list, they're all under assumed names, by the way, to protect their anonymity. But out of 30 kids, we had 12 that went into STEM careers. So you don't often hear about unschooling and STEM. Usually a lot of unschoolers go into entrepreneurship. They start their own businesses, or they go into arts careers. But people start asking me, well, how do they get to calculus? How do they do math to get to STEM? And we had 4 engineers out of 30 kids. That's pretty impressive, right? Engineering is one of the hardest math programs I know of. And 20 of the 30 have already graduated. So that kind of blows out that myth of, oh, when are they going to learn the work ethic, right? If they can get into the university and colleges, do the requirements, pass the exams for their subsequent engineering, nursing associations, obviously they learn. Does that make sense? Okay. Anybody have questions so far? Not yet. Keep going. Okay. So for some of you, oh, great. You probably know about unschooling in Canada. This is a lot of slides. No? Oh, sorry. Oh. So there is an association across Canada. It's very quiet though, because most education is provincial, so very quiet. So it's out there if you want to join. It's $10 a year. I also have books for sale today. They're $30 on Amazon, and you can have them for $20 if you want to buy them, e-transfer, whatever. I can pass it around too if you want to have a look. The other thing too is I know you do a panel of school boards, which is really, really awesome. And what Alberta, I'm also a member of Alberta Homeschooling Association, we're brand new, but we put together a handbook for new homeschoolers to outline everything you need to know to, I don't know about you, but the first time we started, it was just incredible amounts of information, overload. So I brought some of these today, they go to our nonprofit association and they're $20 too. So I can pass those around too if you want to look. Okay. So what is unschooling? Everything in homeschooling is about who controls it. Everything. Right? So if you send your kids to school, imagine your child's here and they have a dinner plate, okay? And in front of them is this big buffet of foods. Everything's there. Chocolate cookies, brownies, broccoli.
All the kids are quiet like,
Oh, where's the food? Don't worry, I have 5 kids too, so I'm used to noise and talking over them, so don't worry about that. So imagine there's a buffet and the child's standing there with an empty plate, right? Now, the government is telling that child what to put on that plate, either through teachers, curriculum, school boards, administrators. So they have to accept what's on that plate. With homeschooling, generally the parent is there and decides what foods, how much goes on that child's plate. Okay? And in unschooling, it's the child or the learner, but same thing. They decide if they're going to load their plate with brownies or broccoli, or how much they're going to eat of that, and if they're just going to leave their plate empty too, which very often we don't do. Every child who breathes learns. They don't need to learn how to learn, right? So that's what unschooling is. It is, I hate to say it's allowing the child to choose their interests, but it is empowering children to learn according to whatever they want, right? Okay. Now I get the question, well, what if they play video games all day? And mine did. Our team of 30, we were avid video gamers. We had game day every day at my, not every day, but once a week at my house on Friday afternoons. That was video game club. But they were they were gamers. They played way too many hours. I'm embarrassed to say I teach parents about moderation, and yet mine just went overboard. But at a time they needed to buckle down and do some studying, they had that self-direction to do it. And it was all about their brain development maturing. Okay? So that's what unschooling is. It doesn't make anybody any money, which is probably why you don't hear about it in mainstream circles, right? It saves the public a lot of money, the taxpayers, and it is very effective. So basically, if your child's 6, you can pretty well bypass the whole Alberta education system and get into universities and colleges, right? You absolutely can. You can just check out for a while. Now, some people do it later. Some people pull their kids out at age 12 or 14 or 15 or whatever. A lot of parents, I had a child with special needs, special learning disabilities, and that started our homeschooling journey, is because his needs were being met. Okay.
I'd love to play the.
Yeah, so that's what unschooling is. Does that kind of make sense, everybody? Okay. Now, I want to know what you guys want to know.
And my username is
I do have a question.
Yay.
So when you, speaking of control, who do you think is the best type of board? It always comes down to the board to deal with when you want to have a child that wants to have the control over their own education. So would you tend to go with a board that's completely private or one that's attached to the public school board and the teachers there are still, I feel, part of the system of, you know, the regular type of schooling? So it's always a hard decision to know which way to go with, you know, if you want to do the total home unschooling, not homeschooling, unschooling.
Right. Did you guys hear the question? Yep. And that's the thing, in the home, because unschooling is under home education regulations, right? In the home ed regs, there is a section where the school authority must be supportive of the parents' program. So technically, every school, public, private, should be supporting you if you choose the methodology of unschooling. That's your right to choose whatever methodology you want, and that is, they should be supportive. Having said that, in the University of Calgary, University of Alberta, the teacher education degree program, there are no mandatory courses on home education. They get no training on the differences, how unique it is, how different it is from school, and certainly no training on unschooling, right? They get training on self-directed learning in the classroom, but that is so different than unschooling at home. Self-directed learning at home is, do you want to study bats? And the child says, no, I'm not interested in bats. And you go, okay, fine. In the classroom, it's, do you want to study, what kind of bats do you want to study, right? You get a little bit of direction, or you can choose your pace, but you can't choose content, you can't choose evaluation, you can't choose methodology in a classroom. Self-directed learning there is pretty well directing your own pace. So in answer to your question,
Yeah, it's a tough one, I know. It's a difficult one, and I know you read about it on the homeschool groups, you know, people going, I'd say wisdom all the way, basically. It looks like they're the forerunner for a lot of unschooling.
Like from Edmonton, I can say for Calgary, but at least here for the school boards who come to our panel, because we hold it twice a year, and we ask that question all the time. So technically there are boards and there are facilitators within those boards who are more trained. For example, if you go with Argyle, which is public school, there is a certain facilitator there who supports unschooling. And if you, yes. So when you go with Wisdom, there's a lot of them who knows that. There is a Willow Home who has a facilitator here in Edmonton who unschools her own children for a long time, and she's supportive of unschooling too. There is other boards who would have, like, you know, if you tell them unschooling and just want a minimum enrollment, they would go with that too. You just have to disclose that right from start. Like for example, E2, they would do if you just at home, not the in private school, but at home, and you do a traditional parent-directed program, they would do that too. And most of them would, I would say. Like I know lots of families with Waldorf school who unschool. So you just kind of say it from the beginning. Want to go that way, you just find me a person who supports you.
Yeah, I would say that too. Like, no matter what school authority you're registered in, if your facilitator does not support your unschooling, especially at the high school level, once you get to high school, it's like, oh, they have to get serious, right? And then ask for another facilitator. If you don't get another facilitator who supports you, change boards.
I actually chose a facilitator and just went with the school board that she was with. Because she was so supportive, and she was actually the one that converted me to unschooling. Because I was originally going to go through the Waldorf curriculum.
Oh, that's
And then I went
interesting.
to Homeschooling 101, and she is a mother and is unschooling, still unschooling her children. And she was the one that converted me. I'm like, okay, I'm doing it, but you're my facilitator. And then I went with her board that is also supportive of unschooling.
Yeah.
So that's
There's only about seven school authorities that support student-directed high school. Most of the big public boards will not, because there's no funding for it. Right? So I am a real proponent of self-directed high school, because I think that's where kids really come into their own. They can put a lot of effort into self-direction, and that sets them up for success in post-secondary. Right? She had a question for us.
Just, it's a little bit off, but I just wondered, as I was just doing our program plan goals not too long ago, how does that work with, like, I always struggle with it every year, because that's, normally I just watch my kids, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, you can do that, oh my gosh, you're just that, let's go do that, and you know, it's like, how can I possibly make a goal when I know that our lives aren't going to necessarily follow that goal? So could you speak to that in unschooling terms? How did you manage that, and especially as they're getting older?
Okay, so if you, in terms of goals, the only thing you have to fill out is that learning plan.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the 20 outcomes, right? You don't even have to put goals in there. All you have to do is put your resources that you want to purchase and your methods on how you're going to find out they're learning anything. And under a lot of that, I put photographs or observation. Okay? You do not have to put goals. So that's the only thing I file once a year. And pretty well, I file the same form every year, unless there's new stuff I want to buy. Or we're setting a story about theater this year. I'm going to just cross that out and put it in Theater Calgary. Right? Like, that's really, it can be, it doesn't have to be more than a page and a half.
Because it's just the formality part of it anyway. So.
Yeah, the government needs your plan.
Okay.
I try and keep that plan as minimal as possible for my work, because I don't get paid for admin work.
Right.
And the less they don't need to know about my program, the better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Now with the form that I had to fill out, your facilitator's already been, and she asked about seeing.
yeah, but you can just, that's online.
I mean, he does everything on the computer. Why do I show?
Just say you have no output. And that's the hard part, is unschoolers generally don't have a whole lot of output to show the learning's taking place. Right? In the school, when they have 30 kids in a classroom, they need to see output. That's why there's so much written work. But at home, you have your child. The only output you need is sitting down with your facilitator and telling her, narrating what you've seen your child do. And then they make the notes, because they get paid for doing that work. Right? So just say, my child doesn't have output, but my child is learning. It's all up here.
And another question comes with it. What if there is an audit and you unlucky person? Because ministries, sometimes they do once a year, they pull random files and see if there is anything there, and facilitator technically they're required to have like a dated samples. I know around the electronic ones how you can go, like there is a loophole how you can go around it. If you have a Google Drive, share it with your facilitator, and just put there all the copies of, like, let's say you do, I don't know, online, there's a program, something, you do like I don't know, like a app or whatever, if there's anything, just save all the stuff there. If you do pictures, like you go outside and do nature work, like they just collect leaves or whatever, take a picture of it, put on that Google Drive. So that's what I know lots of people do with that, but then the question is if there is audit. Have you guys ever faced it? Because I know families who did not like it, but that's why I just like...
So in Alberta, the laws are that your school authority who accepts your program plan in September 28th. So if you write down you're going to show they're learning math through photographs. If you write that down under assessment, that's all you have to show them is photographs, right? If they accept your learning plan, that's a contract. So the government will not audit you, ever, ever.
The problem there was, what if your facilitator, like this works if facilitator knows what they're doing. Like if facilitator, for any reasons, did not keep any proof that you did anything. And those notes are saying in general, that's when the burden kind of goes on parents, because I know one family, they tried to transition to school and it was like big deal because there's nothing, and they're like, what do you mean, like nothing? That's like, there's no way nothing. So like, what do you do in this case? So you just make sure that your facilitator knows how to feel like and get the most information out of all resources that you do around to just make it look like...
I would say that's not my problem. Absolutely not my problem. They have to take enough notes to, I hate to say this on video, but cover their butts with the government. And, you know, and if they don't have properly trained facilitators, maybe they should do more professional development in facilitating home education.
So I guess for families to protect yourself, is just you're kind of trying to figure out the facilitator that they...
All you have to do to protect yourself is comply with the regulations. So allow 2 visits a year for them to sit and chat with your child and fill out a learning plan. If they accept that, that's it. That's all you have to do. In the spring you meet and they take notes based on whatever you say your child's learned, right? So when I talk to school boards, I say, how often are you really audited by the government?
Every year, but it's random files. Like it's not
Random
kind of
files,
out
right.
of 1,000 people, let's say 10 would be, but you know, it's never, you never know whether it's going to be you or not you or next year.
But
So.
at this level, it really doesn't concern you. Even in high school, when they pull courses and want to audit how you gave that mark to your child, it's the facilitator who's responsible for answering to the government. It's not your problem at all.
But it's gonna be your, like I know, but there's like one time it's not, but they asking like from delegation parents to keep dated samples, and then if the parents doesn't produce those, it's kind of between. So
You have to just keep one dated sample. That rule came in about 2006, right? You only have to produce one dated sample. We produced our letters to Santa because that's having 4 boys. I had hardly any written output. My boys hated writing. Right? So that was it. Here's your letter to Santa. Done. Yeah.
When you're looking for a board, really take a look at what is asked from you. Because with wisdom, I don't have to save anything. I don't have to show them.
Oh, but Ken knows what he's doing. Like that's like, you know, he's been there for ages. So he was, I think, went through every like.
She was with a different board. And I don't believe you showed them so much of anything before, but now it's changed. Yeah. So it really depends. And sometimes you will hear one board will accept something as expensive, whereas another one won't. But we're all under the same rules, so I don't get how that works. So really go to the board and look for what they want. Because basically, as long as you fill in, I think it's A to T, yeah, A to T, with all the things that are in line with Alberta curriculum. Once those are filled, you don't have to do anything else. The form that we fill out for wisdom. They ask, how do you do your grading or what have you.
But they facilitate the field before school. I know for sure because I know Kent. Well, like, I know how they know what ministry needs to see when they
Well, I
come to
guess
look
they
at
have
it.
to perform, I guess, okay and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you did put their strengths, it's like a report card.
And then your facilitator from your words, like they write more. So wisdom actually, when you guys, if there's anybody who would be able to transition into school, they can even have report cards. So it's going to be all the things that you need. Like I know that some boards they do that, but my question was in general how to, because before you sign up, you kind of not always know where you're signing for. Like some of them.
Do what makes you feel comfortable. Really, it's what makes you feel comfortable. Because if you're going to jump through all these hoops, you should have to. Really, you should. Let me tell you, when you do your EPP, put as basic and as little as possible.
We are talking about a traditional home education program, right? Because that's the only one you can homeschool on, and that's the only one you can unschool on. I watched your video on the channels, and it was very interesting to hear the school authorities talk about the differences between parent education and online, teacher-directed, paper-based, which is school. You have no control on that. Absolutely zero, right? You have 100% control on parent tradition. So if you want to unschool, you have to stay in that one. That's for sure. Until you get to high school. Right? In this, there's some sample learning plans, and I wrote them with an underscore. Actually, they were ours. So it kind of shows you all we have to do for assessment is like observation, discussion. Our whole social studies was discussion. It was no written material. The one sample is all they want to see that your child can actually write letters. So, demonstrate like they learn. How would they learn algebra? Maybe they're not going to learn algebra.
That's kind of cool though.
Right? So the kids that would
Let's do another one though. This one really fun. Yeah, but.
they video games, they search the internet, they video games. You can't stop a child from picking up everything they need to know. Now the ones I knew that were kind of headed to a slam career, right, the engineer and the nurse, I thought, okay, by about grade 8, maybe they should have a more formal program. So that was the first math class, grade 8, online. Now, it's true, they can learn grades
No, let's start from the.
2, 8 in like.
Okay, can I do the one?
Absolutely. In school, they take it every year. When their brain development, their executive function reaches, it really goes up in puberty, right? They get their abstract thinking skills. They can remember so much. They don't need years of memorizing the times tables. And that's when we started, I think we started algebra for variables and stuff like that. And the engineer, he took grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, grade 12 math. But he did it self-directed, so the things he knew didn't do the business.
Okay, I get it. So once I'm done one, you do
And it came to him easy, because I knew he was heading to that.
So did they initiate that? Like, Mom, I think I want to do this, and so then you kind of presented that, or like how did that work? That part
We
of the
had
relationship?
a conversation. I said, you know, you're good at math, you're good at science. Do you want to get to a career in computers or engineering, sciences or something? And they said, yeah, I think so. They didn't know what they wanted to pick at that point. But then I said, okay, well, math you should start at grade 8. They didn't start science till grade 10. Really good marks. And that's why I tell parents, why don't you do those grade 12 courses on the parent-directed side? Because you have control, right?
So
Or you can write the SATs. Right? You could do that. Or you could, a lot of the team of 30, they went to community colleges, 50 humanities courses, which would count for first year wherever they're going, and transfer over. And just bypass high school. so I just went right in there.
So what would you recommend for medical?
For medical, you would need bio 30, chemistry 30,
Did I figure that out?
math 30,
Mm-hmm.
English 30-1.
So is it better to do while he's in high school, just take those courses like in university during the same time, so kind of he doesn't lose those?
You would need those courses to apply,
Okay.
those grade 12 courses.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only marks that really count is the grade 12 ones.
But you do have to get those,
Yeah.
You have to get those or the SATs.
which is what you were talking about.
Yes. Yeah. You
Or
do
like if you're not going into a program that is like really high STEM or whatever, you can just take like college entrance exams, take a college course and then move to university. But there's that option.
You probably recommend doing your high school courses while they're at that, so that because it makes it easier once they're in university. Is that why you did that with your children? That once they got to grade 8 and you said, let's start taking some courses, is it because it was going to prepare them for university? Or because it was going to get them into university?
both. Both. Because math 30-1 is pretty hard to just
Just go in.
go in and do. Although it can be done, I'm seeing it done now. Or your child could just self-study math. Like math is math. Math is, there's Khan Academy. You don't have to follow Alberta curriculum math. You can do math courses from wherever, from the UK, from wherever, right? And then come in and challenge exams here too. So I talk about the 14 ways to get into university.
Okay.
And, yeah, and you can, if you're over, now there's age restrictions in Alberta. If you're over age 20, you can walk in and challenge any diploma exam for $20. And you get marks and credits. And then when you apply to universities, they can't tell that you haven't done 12 years of education. You just get the marks and credits for those courses. They're older than Alberta.
And what if they're below still, if they're not 20 yet? You're talking,
If they're not 20, then they have to do the prerequisites.
See, I went to go after, I was not an academic at all, but I got my grade 12. And then later on, I decided I wanted to be an electrician and went to a trade school. And they told me that my math credits and my science credits were no good. So I had to do a test for the apprenticeship board.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and I studied because it's something that I wanted to do, and all of a sudden I got 80-something%, and they were like, okay, we're accepting you for science. And I was able to go to trade school, but then later on, after I became a licensed electrician and everything, then I decided to go to university and get my undergraduate science degree. And I went to 2 different universities in just Alberta, said, what do I need? What do I need? You're going to need 2 to 3 years of upgrading because they're still looking at my high school transcripts when I'm 30. So that was still, and then my college education, because it's the trades, it's not. They wouldn't even look at that. So I'm thinking if I had no high school diploma, and I could start from a clean slate, and then they wouldn't have this old stuff to look at, right?
You would think, yeah. It's showing the person that looking at her and not knowing anything.
Yeah, I'm upgrading to get these such classes, and I hope to get X amount of that. So I just walked through student strategy. I'm 30. I can't do 2-3 years of upgrading before I can even do this. Then that was another setting point where it's like, why would I force my kids to do something? Because I know that I did. I made honor rolls all through trade school
Yeah.
for electrical, which is all math and science and theory. And I made honor rolls because I wanted to study.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah, I think they give you bad information because you only have to present marks for grade 12 courses or SATs. Yeah. And then you can get the grade 12 courses by just writing the exam.
I think she told her how would you challenge exams?
Just going to high school and
You register through, there's a way to register through, yeah, there. And they'll tell you what location to write. You go in for English and social, it's 2 days, you go in and write it. And then it accounts for 100% of your mark and retroactive credits too, right? So retroactive credits. And you can write that again in 6 months if you didn't get a good mark. But under age 19, under age 20, then they have to combine that diploma exam mark with the course mark. So one of my sons just got Bio 30 standalone mark. My other son had to take the course and it's under 30.
So is it age restricted? There's age restrictions on
It's
it.
age restricted, yeah. Because, it's because over age 20, it's your dime if you want to try taking a course and failing it. It's your dime. They're not funding it, right? They cannot fund it at age 20.
Maybe it's an update.
So it's not a funding thing.
Actually, I have updated my iPad.
So, okay. So these, I want to go, what do you want me to focus on here? I'm very learner-centered. Is there something particular you'd like to know about?
Okay. Well, I want
14 ways to get into university? Okay. Yeah, we kind of talked about that, but there are 14 ways. Anybody else want something here? Yeah.
Oh, I just kind of have a question with, like, right now, my kids are only 7 and 4, but everything is just, like, yeah, we play a lot of video games, we go to lots of things, and it's all driven by them and their interests. And so I'm wondering, that's kind of my understanding of unschooling now. So as you say, as they get into university and then they're doing these courses and stuff like that, if it's not, like, how, as a mother, if you have that forethought, oh, I think you're going to do this, but if they're not, like, on board with, like, no, I'm not going to do that, like, how is that still unschooling, or, do you know what I'm asking?
If you meet resistance, it's probably your agenda more than theirs.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm facing that now. I have a lot of friends, and some of their kids just don't want to do anything right now.
Right.
They're not in a space yet where they want to make decisions. They're still discovering who they are.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good thing.
Right.
Because then, you know, it's never too late to go to post-secondary. Maybe they're 27.
Yeah.
I went at 25. I went from 25 to 29 and I was motivated, right? So if they go and they're motivated, it doesn't waste anybody's time or money.
Right.
Right?
Thank you.
So just accepting that. So here's that slide I said I'd show you.
No.
So that's the development of the prefrontal cortex. So this is this part of the brain that's the last to mature. That is your focus, your working memory, so thinking of keeping things in mind while doing other things. Your self-control, so your kid's ability to put off the video games and think, okay, I got to study for this test because I want this course. That ability, right? And your mental flexibility with your problem solving. But you can see 0 to 3, little kids, little toddlers, very little self-control, right? And then there's a big leap from 3 to about 7, right? And that's why kids don't go to formal education until 6, because they don't have that developed self-control. And then there's another leap at about 13 when they get their abstract thinking skills. Right? And then here, about 17, they're making that final leap to adulthood. So around 17, among our friends, we discovered that's when they start getting more serious about planning, right? And their friends are planning, and they're thinking, they're feeling the peer pressure. What am I going to do with my life? Okay, so 14 ways to get into university. Okay, so this is the parent or self-taught high school program. Okay, Wisdom is really, really good at this for putting together. They teach you how to do a transcript and things like that, right? The only problem with this is a parent transcript is not very well accepted at the major universities. Yes, it is at certain colleges. It's okay. Portfolios are okay. But when my kids applied, if they're going to Alberta, they apply at a central site on Apply Alberta. And they just plunk in English 3rd, and the field fills in with the rest of the course code. So they're all programmed to accept real courses. not parent-coded courses, okay? But this is one way in, if you want to do a more private, smaller college, it's really becoming a lot more easier to do that. This is what we did, self-taught for government-issued diploma. This is what your transcript looks like, not yours, your kids. So it lists your course codes, your exam marks, your course marks, your credits, and what school granted you the courses.
Nope.
Yes. So when you apply to University of Alberta, they pull the transcript from Apply Alberta. It doesn't go through your hands at all. They don't trust us. So that's how it works for Alberta. When my son applied for Memorial, he had to get his transcript transferred from Apply Alberta to Memorial. We didn't get to see it either, right? But what we did is we did all self-directed, well not all, mostly self-directed high school. So the kids would register for a course under Parent Home At, right? We put in a course proposal, let's say Chemistry 20. Put in the course proposal for a facilitator. We told her what we're going to do. She said, yes, that's great. We did our work, and then we did a course summary, showed her our work, gave her our mark, and she approved it. And she reports marks and credits. So we're still a lot of control. You do have to meet the outcomes. But how you meet the outcomes is up to you. Whether you're watching Khan Academy, or you're going on a field trip, whatever. It's very much controlled by the student. So that's what we do. And this is pretty well accepted all over. So that's number 2. So number 3 is diploma challenge, or challenge the SATs, which I talked about. Number 4 is a high school course challenge. So there's kind of a formal process through Alberta Education where you can do a high school course challenge. We looked at that, and the requirements were just as much work as taking the course. So I would just complete only grade 12 courses and exams, right? So I talked about that too. It's only taking the grade 12 courses. You don't have to do the prerequisites, or do the prerequisites your own way. The key is really good at high school level. Those keys, they cover all the important concepts of each course. They're $30 a chapter. We use those a lot. The kids would self-study, do the questions, look up the answers, stuff like that.
So sorry, you say you may have to wait until a certain age, and that was 20?
Yes.
Okay.
Where did you get this?
You could do a high school, but don't do all the filler courses like phys ed, comm, CTS courses. Just get your course, or get your child's course. You can get the GED. I find that was a bit of work, and I thought, well, you want to do the least work for best credit. So none of them. But a few of the Team of 30 did go the GED route, so that's one way. And then adult high school upgrading in the community. So this used to be Chinook Learning in Calgary. Do you have what's the adult upgrading school in Edmonton? Is it? Okay. Yeah. And would they fund past age 20? No. Yeah.
Is it, or if you go through the school, I think you can go up to age 24. You can actually take that time, and you can do it through the school to do all your classes and stuff.
Yeah. But is it cheap? Is it like?
It's not much.
Okay, so it is funded. Yeah. We used to be like that in Calgary, but they cut the funding to just age 20 now. So if you have a 19-year-old, so between age 17, when they just decide what they want to do, and age 20 they can get all those core courses in.
I think how they do it is that if you apply and start the work before the cutoff age, you do have until those few extra years to actually do it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I did it, I tried it.
Okay.
It was
This is really good. We use this a lot because it's almost like they could just go for one course. They don't have to do the whole school, high school experience. Go for one course. They're with adults. Most adults are serious. They want to get, they're motivated, right? 9 is community colleges. So I said, like I said, do a year at a community college and then transfer to the program you really want. Or stay there. Yeah. Challenge university entrance exams, and that depends on the university. So some have them, some don't. But that's a possibility. Or try out the university's open studies programs. So you can just pick and choose some courses then, and get into open studies, get good marks, and then transfer to a degree program.
Or actually,
You can go open.
I don't know, maybe it's a mistake, but you always hear about kids taking university, college or university classes for credits, so that when they start going, they can kind of put those two together. Is that what that is? Open classes.
No, these are taken at universities. So universities have an open studies program, so you can take any course, but it doesn't necessarily lead to down the track to a degree. Right?
But the credit counts more than this part.
Yeah. So once you get into a faculty, into a degree program, you can pull that humanities course and use it for your humanities requirement. Yeah. So that's a way of getting in, because once you get good marks here, and then they look at you and go, oh yeah, okay, you're a suitable candidate. Did you have a question?
Just that if you're in open studies, you can go into like engineering or something like that from open studies or not?
Have to apply.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and there are only a certain number of spots for transfer students in highly competitive programs.
Okay.
Engineering is highly competitive, right? They I think there was 140 spots at Calgary and a few more in Edmonton in the 2 big universities, and then more around the province. But for highly competitive, when the average for engineering right now is 95%, you may have to go out of province. And then 12 is in-house upgrading at universities. That's really good too. A lot of universities, you can feel like a student there, and you get used to the atmosphere, and it's really good for a lot of kids. They think, hey, yeah, I like this. This is nice. You know? There's not kids disrupting the class. Mature students, so that status at 21 for a lot of universities, you can apply as a mature student, and they have a certain number of spots open for that too. So all you need for that is probably English 30. Dash one. And the last one is attend a regular high school. That is an option, right? A lot of unschoolers do want to do that, so that's an option. Okay. All right. What else did you? Yeah.
I have a question about. So I have 2, and sometimes I find it hard to. Like how involved do you have to be? We have the art space, like unlimited art supplies. We have nature. We have, but quite often the days just kind of are done, and you're like, what do you really accomplish? You know, I don't know if it's just the age that we're at right now, that it's not really really diving into specific projects. We're just kind of, I don't know, just kind of all dwarfs. How do you know that you're meeting those needs of your children for those directed things? Is it something that I'm supposed to be saying, hey, do you want to practice your ABCs today, or just whenever they want to? Like, how do you know that you're meeting those needs?
Good question. Did you hear that question in the back? Okay. So if you live your life, you're meeting those needs. All right, so if you look at brain development, kids are gonna learn, right? They're gonna learn whatever they wanna learn. And they're gonna keep learning. I don't think you have to do anything. So the 3 components of unschooling is lots of unstructured time. So lessons and stuff don't count. It has to be free time, free play. Totally, they choose.
Right, so we have like mostly that. And then like swimming lessons and library, art class, but other than that, it's basically like all. They have butterflies and trampoline today.
Yeah, so that was today. So I had a child who absolutely loved wanting to know about engines. What do I know about engines? I know nothing. So I said, I'm sorry, Kevin, I gotta go teach a class. Because I was working part-time, right? And you cannot stop a child from learning about engines. If he wants to know about engines enough, he is going to go to the internet, he's going to go to the library, he's going to find out what he wants to know. And all kids are born that way. We just, at age 6, we say, sorry, you can't learn your agenda, you have to learn this agenda now. You're in this track. Where unschooled kids just continue along, they're still learning a lot. But it's on a different track. There's not a lot of output. So it's hard to trust them. But it's like we don't teach sex education. Or we don't, right? But kids learn it. Like everybody learns it. We don't formally get out of the books and say, okay. So absolutely, kids are going to learn. And in the process. So my kids, I actually, once a month I would sit down and write down what we did and what they learned and stuff. And it was amazing how a lot of what they taught in school, like rocks and meadows in grade 3 or wetlands in grade 5 or playing in grade 6, a lot of that you just come to naturally, just through living your life, right? It's just not a formal sit down and fill in a workbook experience. But you talk about it, I'm sure you have discussions with your kids in your car. Yeah? Social studies. Absolutely. Check it off.
So, I like the idea of unschooling, and I'm also a very like formulaic type of human, and so trying to like learn more about it. Is it a lot about like if they're interested in engines or trains or whatever, it's just kind of putting more resources in front of them to facilitate that learning. You know, like I think I would be. I know that some people are better than others. Hands off. You know, and I'd be like, here's another thing. You know what I mean? So like, how do you? I mean, maybe you're just most comfortable with that, but like, is it about kind of helping them out, finding the resources as they guide you?
Yeah. They need free time, they need resources, and they need an adult facilitator to get them stuff, right? So, because a lot of times they can't get that. But if you look at it, what do you buy your kids for Christmas? You buy things for custodians, right? You're good at that. Just keep going for their learning. If they're interested in engines, go to the library and say, okay, here's the engine book section. You do that naturally. You don't, we call that strewing. Sometimes I leave out things, like I'll toss out a bucket of pattern blocks on the table and just walk away, and I know, guaranteed, some kids are going to sit down there and play. Right? And that's called strewing. But pretty well, they'll learn everything they need to know by about age 13, and that's where they may want to specialize more or not. And definitely by 17 or 18.
Okay. When puberty comes into play and everything, he did all the easiest time and he just kind of wanted to be left alone and just, you know, kind of grumpy as boys are, right? How long should we let them like try with the puberty thing before we start saying, okay, come on, You gotta start doing something.
Well, see, I'm the non-punitive person. So,
Okay, well, what would you do then? If your boys are going through puberty and they're just bucking everything you're gonna say?
except for video games?
Pretty much.
Yeah, the play video. No, a lot of that is parenting too. I mean, in our family, we have chores. You know, our kids do chores. We have scheduled meal times, because that's family time. We have reading time. We would read to them as teenagers, just because it was fun. So those kinds of things I would insist on. And if I got pushback, then I would sit down with them, problem solve, and say, okay, here's my needs. I need you to do something. I need chores done. What do you need? And then we work it out. But kids, I mean, my video gamer who I worried about most for addictive behavior, he's the engineer, and he's working in cybersecurity now. So kids will follow their interests, and it's very often a career path. And maybe he's still percolating things. Maybe, and teenagerhood is hard because, you know, hormones and brain development, but there are times they're going to want to be alone and we're going to leave them alone. But that doesn't mean you don't get your needs met. It's not, unschooling is not permissive parenting. It's very hands-on parenting. Like you're there, you're facilitating, but you don't have to give up what you need either. Like you work it out, just like you do with your partner. Yeah. But there are times like teens and they're grumpy and you just go with it. I know.
Can I have the other half of that? So I did leave my son for a whole year to do whatever it was that he wanted, like you said, just being there and whatever. And just last Saturday, he's 14. He went with his sister to the NAIT open house and would like to do the computer engineering and is now thinking, boy, I really need to start doing math. So, wow. And he's not grumpy.
He's not prickly. No, I can see that. He's very much more friendly nowadays.
And that's good. And you know what? I just wrote an article called The Unschooled Engineer, and I used a 16-year-old example who hasn't done anything besides he wants to be a computer engineer. And in the book, there are ways to learn math without a workbook. Like, they're not starting from zero. They're starting from where they're at, but they've already learned fractions and decimals and all that stuff. Like, kids learn that through life. So,
thank you, Maria, and thank you for inviting me to come today to speak. I'll just keep it fairly brief, but to give my experience, I met Maria a few weeks ago, so she invited me to come out to the event. And I don't have a slideshow, I just have some notes. I'm going to read a little bit off the notes and then just add a little bit as well. But yes, I was homeschooled from K to 12. I usually say that my mom homeschooled me from K to 12, but the truth is my mom and my dad gave me my education. And my mom is actually in the back, Donna. She came with me too. So I had a really great experience being homeschooled. Excuse me, I loved it. There was only really one point in my life when I wanted to go to school, but I realized I couldn't have both, and I was really happy being homeschooled and graduating at that. And as for our curriculum, I usually get asked this question, so I just thought I would add that in that most of the homeschoolers I knew at the time we were homeschooled had a varied plethora of curriculum, of publishers that made up their curriculum. Some of the things that we used were Saxon Math, a Becca book early on, and some computer software for learning Latin, and numerous other books. So, but it wasn't until I finished my homeschool studies in 2005 that I decided I wanted to go to university. So I was already finished my homeschool studies, so I was 18. So I did quite a bit of research and spoke with representatives at the U of A to figure out how I could get into university, and eventually decided that I was going to go the diploma exam route. So I took chemistry, biology, and math through night school and also summer school. I really enjoyed the night school. That was a good experience. It was some older students, and everyone who was there wanted to be there, and it was just a more laid back environment, so that was good. So I wrote the diploma exams with that, and then I had studied the violin for 10 years at that point, so I used that to get credit for Music 30 through letters written by private music teachers and such, and then I used that in place of social studies to get into university. And I was in arts, so they allowed that. And then throughout my university, I worked and paid my way through school. And then I also was involved in a number of extracurricular activities on campus. And one of those activities was a political club on campus. And by the time I had reached university, I'd already been volunteering for a number of years, about 6 years or so, in my community of Millwoods, where I grew up, and different positions such as youth representative on our electoral district association board. I attended policy and constitution conventions as a youth delegate, and I'd already volunteered on a number of nomination and campaign or election campaigns. So I already had quite a bit of experience by the time I reached university. And that was, now that I look back on it, having already been homeschooled, I realized that that was part of my education. That was part of my real life education, being a homeschooler. I really learned about the democratic process and gained an appreciation for it, and that's what really grew my love of my country and of Alberta. So that's where I kind of fell in love with community involvement and building a community through a shared commitment to upholding that democracy. So that was a really good experience. So when I went to university, I was definitely gung-ho to join whatever club would have me. So, and after I joined the political campus club, I eventually became the vice president of fundraising, and I was able to raise thousands of dollars for our club. And I also served as the VP events. I organized events for students to meet politicians, both locally and national politicians. And then in my last year of university, I was the first elected female president that the club had ever had. And then after, or in my last summer of university, I should say, I received an internship in Ottawa with the Minister's Office of Citizenship and Immigration Canada. And at the time, that was Jason Kenney. That was in 2012. That was an excellent experience. He had a great office. And then the summer after graduating with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science, I landed another internship at a minister's office, and that was actually here in Edmonton for the then Minister of Education, Jeff Johnson. And so it was that internship that really impressed upon me and made me realize the need to have knowledgeable advocates in government for home education who understand it both philosophically and practically. And so that really opened up my eyes. It was a good experience, and I learned quite a bit from that. And I think that was true 5 years ago when I did the internship, but I think needing to have those advocates in government now is more true than it ever was. However, after I completed my internship in education, although I continued, and still to this day, I volunteer in Millwoods politically in different associations, I didn't professionally pursue politics. And that was because I instead devoted my time and efforts towards the video game development company. I didn't know that was going to be a topic today. The video game development business that my husband and our good friend, a very good programmer, had started up recently here in the city. So when I was done my internship, I didn't pursue politics anymore. I put all my time and effort into building the company with them. They had just started it a year prior. So we built it up, we staffed up, we gained a number of employees, we had an office, and we moved, and so we went through that and learned a lot. And now after the long hours and the hard work, I'm happy to say that we've been in business almost for 7 years, and we have over 10 employees. So that's a whole nother story though, so if that's a long story. So if you're all interested in video game development, I'd be happy to talk with you afterwards if that's of interest to you. But going back to my experience in Alberta education and also all that's been going on with the current government and education, quite a bit going on that they've been doing, I actually decided a few months ago that I was no longer going to simply hope that other people would stand up and advocate for education. So I made the decision it was a hard decision, I made the decision to put my name forward for nomination in my riding of Millwoods. And I'm running for the United Conservative Party, hoping to gain their nomination in that riding. And in the hopes that I can be that advocate. I don't want to wait any longer for anyone else to do it. And I believe that having the practical and philosophical, or at least some philosophical understanding from my own experience in homeschooling, what the needs are, I would be a fearless and uncompromising advocate for home education in the numerous forms that it takes. I wasn't, I guess unschooled, I think that's the word, yeah. That wasn't my experience, but I enjoy it.
It wasn't the thing then, I think.
It wasn't as
the
much of a
then.
thing, I don't think, yeah. But I respect parents and their rights, and it's up to them to decide that. So that's something I would definitely advocate for. Let's see what else I have to say on that. And as well as being a business owner, that's another reason why I wanted to run as well. I think believing that I could advocate for small business and for tech industry as well. So if you're interested at all in supporting my nomination bid, I'd definitely be happy to speak to you afterwards, or if you have any questions on video game development or my transition to university, I'd also be happy to speak with you. So, yeah.
You could be our next education minister.
I guess you never know, but I don't think I'm not counting on it. But yeah. So that was yeah.
So which out of 14 those ways to get to university you used? So it was like, I guess, night school. Did it have age restrictions at that time or no? Like the night school and
It was
summer
Metro
school?
Continuing Education, and I think they give you 2 years where it's free, I think, 2 years up until you're 20 where you can take the course for free.
Okay.
So I took, a few night school through Vimy Ridge. I was at Vimy Ridge, and then did summer school as well, which I didn't enjoy quite as much as summer school. Maybe it was just because it was summer. But the night school I thought was pretty good. I thought that was a good option. So I learned the Alberta curriculum basically in order to write the diploma exam.
Okay.
And challenged the English. I didn't study their curriculum, I just challenged the English exam. So it was pretty easy. So, yeah. Thanks, Maria. Thanks
No
for
problem. Does anybody have any questions or something? No.
Yeah, I could speak after too if
Sure.
anyone's interested. You can just come up to me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maria.
No problem. Thank you for seeing me.